Hello everyone and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial what I want us to do is I want us to create an array of type string. So we'll create an array of heroes. We'll stick with the DC universe. We'll say let heroes be equal to, and we'll put in our regular heroes, Superman, Wonder Woman, etc. But then what I want to do is I want us to create a for loop that logs out to the console the last element of the array, and using the decrement operator count down to the first element in the array, the element at index 0. So that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. So I'm going to say let heroes, whoa, that was not typing at all. Let heroes be equal to, and I'm going to say Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, hello Bruce, Robin, okay, and lastly we will do Aquaman. I can't spell cyborg, so I'll have to learn how to spell that for a future tutorial. Okay, now one thing is that we can access the length property of an array, okay? So for example, we know that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements in this array. To prove that to you, if I say console.log, I'll just say something like elements total or number, comma separate. If I say heroes.length, okay, we know that should be equal to 5, okay? If I just save and refresh, we get 5, okay? There are 5 elements in this array, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? So that's awesome. So basically, we know that heroes.length is 5. Now, if we were to log out heroes at index 0, that would be Superman. Index 1 would be Wonder Woman. Index 2, Batman. Index 3, Robin. Index 4 is Aquaman. So what we want to do is we want to start our counter variable at heroes.length minus 1, okay? So remember, heroes.length is equal to 5, okay? So if we do heroes.length minus 1, what do we get? We get 4, okay? So that will actually print out the last element in the array, Aquaman. So to prove that to you, let's do our for loop. So I'm going to say for, use the for keyword. I'm going to say let counter be equal to, and remember, we start our counter variable this time at the last element in the array. So I'm saying let counter be equal to heroes.length minus 1, okay? Now, we want to run our loop while our counter variable, if I said I there, I apologize, I meant to say counter, force of habit. But basically, we want to run our loop while our counter variable, well, counter, is greater than or equal to 0. And we want to include 0 because if we were to say, well, counter is greater than 0, we're not going to include Superman. We want to include him, okay? So counter is greater than or equal to 0. And after each loop iteration, every time we cycle through this array, we want to just take one of our counter variable by saying counter minus minus. So that's the decrement operator. And then all we need to do is just log out to the console heroes at index counter, okay? So let me just explain once again what's happening. We have our for loop. We've created our counter variable. We've said let counter be equal to heroes.length minus 1. Remember, there are 5 elements in the array, so heroes.length is 5. If you take 1 from it, heroes.length minus 1, we get 4. So if you log out to the console heroes at index 4, you're going to get Aquaman. Then we check our condition. We say is counter greater than or equal to 4? Is 4 greater than or equal to 0? Yes, it is. So we enter the loop. We just log out to the console heroes at index 4, which should be Aquaman. So to prove that to you, that this is going to work, we get Aquaman. Then what we do is after we log out Aquaman, we come up here to the final expression in the for loop and we decrement. We take 1 away. So now counter has a value of 3. Here's index 3 is 0, 1, 2, 3. So therefore we log out Robin. And we see that there, Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. And the great thing about this is that the code we've written is dynamic. So if we were to add another element to the array, forgive my attempt to spell cyborg, I believe that is how you spell it. What's going to happen now is we've added another element to the array, but we're still going to always include the last element of the array because we've written this dynamically. Okay, so now we get cyborg at command all the way down. Okay, so that's the great thing about this syntax. You know that if you want to print out the last element of the array, you can simply do array name dot length -1. Make sure your counter variable you're testing while it's greater than or equal to 0. It's inclusive of 0 because remember arrays start counting at 0. So here as an index 0 is Superman, and because we're counting backwards, you want to use the decrement operator rather than the increment operator. Otherwise, you'll get stuck in an infinite loop. Okay, that's awesome. That's how you iterate over an array of strings backwards. So I'll see you in the next tutorial.